Okay, my name is Ranakan Kunchotirat, and today we're going to be talking about food and safety. So let me describe the structure of our presentation first. We will categorize different types of food. We think that the three main types is food for healthy, food for industry, and we'll give some example as well. And now we also have this concern of food hazard, and we will describe it in three categories: physical, chemical, and biological. And we will also talk about this very extra point, which is genetic modified food. Why? It is because food is essential. You can see that food is everywhere, and food is the basic, the fuel, the energy of humans. If we don't have it, we have no energy, we will die. And the company now produce a lot of food, mass producing it, and we don't know if that is safety or not. So we will try to look into in a detail which kind of people that will have what kind of food, and is it safe or not for anybody.
Okay, first we're talking about the food industry. What is food industry food? Food industry is food that made from industrial yield, such as vegetation, livestock, fishery, and etc. Applied to food processing for speedy, quality, safety, and convenience. The importance of food industry: this process could preserve the industry yield at low cost to produce and increase the volume of the industry yield. This is the examples companies that make the industry food. First is CP, and this is the product of CP, the S&P, Mama, and canned fish. Healthy food means all the food we eat as vegetable, fruit, and meat that contain vitamins that are helpful for our body. Food and vegetables are naturally low in fat, and they add flavor and variety to your diet, and also contain a vitamin, mineral, and fiber. Healthy food is important for the prevention of many chronic diseases such as obesity, heart disease, diabetes, and cancer. And this is example of a healthy food company such as Okaju, Farm Factory, Jones Salads, and Squeeze.
So now we are going to talk about the nutrition of cheese. So cheese is a dairy product made from milk and have like a variety of shapes, textures, and flavors. In addition to being delicious, it is highly nutritious and very rich in several vitamins and minerals. So here is the nutrition fact of 100 grams of cheddar cheese. The total calories is 98, and the total fat, saturation, trans fat, everything is 4.3 grams, which is 7%. Cholesterol is 17, potassium 104, and the sodium is 364. Total carbohydrate, which is from the lactose, is 3.4 grams, and the protein is around 11. Okay, so cheese is mainly composed of fat and protein, the proportions which depend on the type of cheese. About the protein, the majority of proteins in cheese belong to a family of milk proteins called casein. And milk proteins are excellent quality, rich in essential amino acids, and highly digestible. So now move on to the fats. The fat content of cheese is highly variable depending on the type of cheese. In cottage cheese, this one is quite low in fat, but compared to the cream cheese, this one is a lot higher, like 30 times higher than cottage cheese.
So I will talk about GMO, genetically modified organisms, food. So what is GMO? Genetically modified food or GM foods are food that derive from genetically modified organisms, alter the genetic makeup of animals and plants. So these are types of GM foods in the world that you might have seen before: corns, soybeans, cotton, canola, papaya, zucchini, apple, potato, and sugar. So these are the benefits of GMO. Of course, with increasing global population, GMO is the answer. GMO creates essential and sustainable way to feed the world, aka food security. With GMO, plants becomes more resistant to weeds, pesticides, disease, and even adverse weather conditions. It requires less time, less use of fertilizers, but more efficient use of land, and all in all, more profit. At last, food become better with texture, flavor, and nutrition values, and food with longer shelf life, also easier for shippings. Here comes the drawback of GM. The only one problem is that the process of inserting genes into DNA of plants is totally random, which means even scientists, they don't even know where the genes would go, and this can disrupt the functioning of genes, and could create some type of proteins that never been in food supplies, which can later on lead to toxins and allergens food. So the conclusion, we must proceed with concern to avoid causing unintended harm to human health and the environment as a result of these powerful technologies.
So, just to recap, we have discussed industrial food, healthy food, and genetic modified food. But the most important thing is that what type of food is suitable for different type of people, because different type of people have different needs. For example, a teenager is going to need more protein for them to grow. The old people does not need protein, but perhaps something else that they lack of, and different people have different requirements. So we need to look individually, personally, of what kind of food we are needed or required. I cannot say for sure because this is something personal. You have to take into account of look into your own health as well. And let's now go talk about the hazard. And now we're going to talk about chemical hazard. Basically, chemical hazard is really similar to biological hazard. They are basically the chemical toxic that went into food or something that we consume. And it's the thing that went into is not a living thing. It's not a microorganism or a virus or anything, but it's a chemical component. And the way that it can get into our body is by direct contact or breathing, injection, or something like that.
Third type of hazards is of liquid, fiber, flammable material. For the common chemical hazards, first one is specific types of chemicals have been associated with harmful health effects, skin irritation, disfiguring, burns, eye injury, or blindness caused by corrosive chemicals products. Toxic byproducts such as fiber and flames caused by incompatible chemicals. For the next one, serious burn from flammable solvents that catch on fire. And the last one is injury from exploding containers such as spray can and poisoning from accidental showering. For controlling chemical hazard, for the first one is PPE, providing personal protective equipment for avoiding skin irritations by wearing the correct scope or also eye and face protection. For the next one is practicing good personal hygiene such as washing hands. For the next one is substitutions, the use less of hazardous material or process. And the last one is maintain adequate ventilation system to reduce concentration of airborne chemicals.
Okay, so now I'm going to talk about physical hazard. So basically, it is an activity posing a potential hazard to health, which can cause harm with or without contact. And consumer complains that injury occur immediately after or soon eating, and the source of hazard is easy to identify. And here is an example of one of the physical hazards. So let's start with heavy metals. You can find from machineries, staples, and buildings.
The next example is glass. It causes hazard because of bleeding, and it requires surgery to remove it. The example is the bottles, jars, light fixtures, thermometers, and gauge covers, dust, hair, and filth.
And next is biological hazard. Biological hazard is referring to the virus that invaded the food. Basically, if the food has the virus, bacteria, or anything, that is considered as a biological hazard. And how can it get into your body? Basically, if you eat the food that is bad, then that's how the biological hazard is going to be taken into account. So, for example, if you eat a bad food, the food that have gone rotten for a while now, then you will have some sort of a symptom, some diseases, and some example of the things that cause biological hazard is as listed.
So these are the 4 types of the biological hazard, which is virus and fungi.
And the bacterial parasites.
And the way to prevent this biological hazard is to wash your hand oftenly and be careful for the food that you eat. For example, the biological hazard actually happens in America, actually even the first world country. Chipotle is a Mexican fast food restaurant. They sell a fresh and raw food that is mixed in tacos, a famous restaurant in the United States. But even though it is high standard and reaches all the requirements, they still can be a possibility of biological hazard. So you need to be really careful about the food that you eat. And that's why, because we have so many hazards, we need a standard to encounter it, to measure, and to fix the problem. That's why we have HACCP, GAP, Good Agriculture Products, Good Manufacturing Products, and ISO is a international organization standard. Yeah. So for conclusion, I think that we should really look into our food packaging and look through the details of the food, where it was produced and what kind of standard that the company has, or consider the possible food hazard that could occur, and be really careful about the choice of food that you choose. And this is our bibliography. Thank you very much.